Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another round of sound. This is the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. I'm your host, Bob Pompeani, and we have a lot to get into tonight. Steelers preseason game #1 is on the horizon Friday night here on KDKA-TV. A lot of Steeler topics. We'll also get into pass interference. We already saw one of those called, challenged, and reviewed. We'll get into the Pirates, where they are. Can they say the word rebuild? Or does it even exist in their vocabulary? #1 topic tonight, however, on the Steelers will be the Pittsburgh Steelers, who had their Family Fest tonight. And here is our Family Fest right in the studio. Your panel includes Andrew Fillipponi at the top of the screen, does Sports Radio 93.7 The Fan, the PM Show, and also the Pony Express nationally on CBS. In the middle, it's Mark Kaboly, outstanding beat writer of the Steelers for The Athletic. And down below in the Brady Bunch box, that would be Tim Benz.
Forgot my eye black, Bob. I don't have my eye black.
I have plenty. Just give me a growling look. With Trib and also Steelers Radio Network. All right, so let's get into this right off the bat. Ben Roethlisberger now says he feels good about football again, Andrew. He's very optimistic. There is no Antonio Brown. There is no Le'Veon Bell. Do you think Ben Roethlisberger will statistically have a better year without those two?
I think he should. I think the interception number goes down. I think the passer rating goes up. I think we should get guys the most efficient version of Ben Roethlisberger we've ever seen. 16 years in, they're paying him $34.5 million. He's got his entire offensive line intact, which was his #1 wish this offseason. They got rid of his biggest headache. So I don't know if I expect Ben to set passing records this year, Bob. I don't think he'll lead the league in yards again, but I think we'll see a better touchdown to interception ratio, and I think he has to be the best quarterback in the division, and I think he will be.
Yeah, I hope statistically, Bobby doesn't have the same season that he had a year ago. As Andrew's wrapping up there at this point, I tend to agree with that sentiment. I'd rather see the run-pass split become more narrow. I'd rather see the Steelers lean on the run game quite a bit in the early going as the nuances of this passing game without Antonio Brown work themselves out. And I don't want to see Ben have to throw to keep the Steelers in games, catch them up, or come back late in the fourth quarter after they've blown a fourth quarter lead, as they did so many times last year, to get Chris Boswell in a position to miss kicks. Basically what I'm saying is I hope the run game alleviates some of that burden off of Roethlisberger this year.
No offense, Benzie, but all 3 points you made there is probably not going to happen, though.
Probably not.
It's not going to happen. I don't think they're going to run the ball any better. I mean, they're going to use the short passing game like they always were, and that's how it is. But as for Roethlisberger, I don't underestimate his motivation this year. When I talk about motivation, I'm not talking about money, and I'm not talking about titles or anything. I think he's quite motivated for what happened during the offseason, nationally, some of what people said about him. And he does want to prove, just like Antonio Brown on the other side of the country wants to prove, it wasn't Antonio Brown that made Ben Roethlisberger good. So there was nothing better with Ben right now to have that motivation to stick it up everybody's behind right now, including Antonio Brown.
Well, he does that by winning, though, right? He does that by winning, Mark? I mean, and doesn't that happen more so by him not having to throw as often? I mean, we've seen every number under the sun that suggests the more he throws, the more often the Steelers lose.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, that's the case. But I think those numbers are a little bit jaded, in my opinion, because a lot of times that's late in games. But he just wants to prove, and if it is being able to turn James Washington, Deontay Johnson into stars or semi-stars, rejuvenate Dante Moncrief's career because of him, is what he would like, on top of definitely a world title.
And Bob, the age isn't an excuse for me, because maybe 5 years ago, if we were having the same conversation, you'd wonder about a quarterback at 36, 37 years old. But now these guys with the new rules have all found the fountain of youth, right? I mean, Brady just turned 42 and gets a contract extension today. Drew Brees, the players in that poll said he was the best quarterback in the NFL last year. He turned 40. And look at what Phillip Rivers, Ben Roethlisberger's peer from the 2004 draft class, just did. So just because Ben's getting a little gray and maybe losing a little bit of hair up there doesn't mean that the expectation should diminish for what we think he'll do this year.
All right, quick sub note to that one, real quick. Who retires first, Brady or Ben? Mark Kaboly, what do you say?
Oh, I would probably say Brady. I think if Brady wins another title, I know he wants to get to 45, but I wouldn't you know, I wouldn't count out Ben trying to get the 40, 41 if he's playing like that. It all depends on, obviously, the severity of any injury. But it's probably pretty close. But I would probably say Brady.
I'd probably say Ben, to be honest with you, because I think he's more at risk for an injury. And if things don't go well over the next 3 years, I can see him not wanting to play, especially if Brady keeps playing and keeps winning Super Bowls over the next 3 years.
I think just like Sidney Crosby, hockey is his entire life. I think the same thing's true of Brady. I think you're going to have to take him kicking and screaming out of New England. And if Bill Belichick, for some reason, decides to move on, I think it can get ugly there. I think Ben Roethlisberger obviously says he loves football again, but I don't think it defines him the same way it does Brady. It's his brand, Bob. It's TB12, baby.
It is TB12. Real quick, we have about 2 minutes left in this segment. I want to talk about running back because you guys talked about it. Mark, do they do a one-man approach? In other words, give the ball to James Conner until the wheels fall off, or do they spread it around because they have a kid like Jalen Samuels, they have another kid like Benny Snell who was good at doing that in Kentucky? What do you think their approach would be, the same as usual, or will they spread it around?
I mean, history says it's going to be the same as usual, no matter what they might tell you. Connor is by far and away the better runner of any of those guys, so I find it impossible to believe they're going to take Connor off the field in any instance. They have to be a little bit careful because they got to have him, healthy for later in the season, something he hasn't did probably since his junior year at Pitt. But I don't see it, man. I see 250, 300 carries again, and he's going to have a monster time.
Yeah, I hope you're wrong, Mark. I know what Jalen Samuels did against New England, which was great, found money as far as I'm concerned, but Mike Tomlin, he's got to look at last year, be introspective. He gave the ball on, what, 3rd and short, or was it 4th and short, to Stephen Ridley in New Orleans with the season on the line. The Connor durability questions, I think, are real. I think there are fumble questions from last year that remain unanswered because Connor really never got healthy until week 17. So I hear so much about how Benny Snell is a Steelers running back. When they won their last title 10 years ago, they went running back by committee, and I think they should do it again this year.
I think Benny Snell should get some more snaps than what was given out to Ridley and to Samuels. I think they got convinced as the season went along that James Conner was #1 back, but they also gave him the opportunities, as many as they did early in the season, because they didn't trust the backups. Randy Fichtner and Mike Tomlin are both on record, in essence, as saying that this year already in training camp. And let's keep in mind, Juju Smith-Schuster, T.J. Watt, James Conner all come up at the same time for contracts in advance of 2020. If they can't figure out a way to keep all three of those guys, they might want to know what they have in Benny Snell.
Why don't you run the wheels off the corner then?
Well,
might not be a bad idea.
We have more coming up on Juju. We're going to talk about Chris Boswell. We have a lot of Steelers stuff coming up, plus some Pirate stuff, so don't go away. We're just getting started. But I want to remind you about the newest Chevy store in the region. You might ask, where is it? The answer is #1 Cochran Chevrolet in Cranberry. And if you haven't been there yet, now is your time to go. You can get incredible grand opening offers on all your favorite Chevy cars, trucks, and crossovers, plus #1 Cochran's exclusive Clearly Better car buying experience. It's the season of savings, and it's going on right now at the new #1 Cochran Chevrolet Cranberry, Perry Highway, formerly Kenny Ross. Or you could visit CochranChevrolet.com and do it right now. We'll be right back. The #1 Cochran Sports Showdown is brought to you by #1 Cochran, Go One Better, and by Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield. Have a greater hand in your health.